Welcome back to the weekly vlog where, yes, I get to talk about what I've read this past week, currently reading, and more importantly for me, to talk about what I watched and consumed for content of any kind. So, hello, welcome back to this channel. My name is Zach. I mostly review science fiction and fantasy books with books of every genre, from comics to manga to personal development. But yes, once a week, I take the time to talk about the other types of media I've consumed, as well as what I'm currently reading this week. So I'm pretty, voracious reader, about one book a week, slipping it in whenever I can, the audiobooks. And yes, this week I finished one book and started 3 books. So to start things off, what I finished this week was amazing. Another 10 out of 10 contender for book of the year again, surprisingly. And it is Shadow of the Leviathan Part 2, or Number 2, A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the direct sequel to now the Hugo Award winning first book in the trilogy, The Tainted Cup, which blew me away. I read it about like 2 months ago, but I just posted the review online yesterday. So I posted the review before the whole Hugo Awards came out. Actually, don't really pay attention to awards until after the fact, so I didn't even know it was on the award list for best novel. And yeah, I gushed about it in my review because I found it so much fun. It is a murder mystery, but also a fantasy series. It has elements of some of my favorite animes like Attack on Titan. It was a great mix of a series. And yeah, this second book, dare I say, is better so far. Mainly because we jump right into the action. Whereas the first book of a series, it was great, but you're setting up things, you're learning who the characters are, their quirks, you're kind of just finding your way. But in this book, we've got that out of the way. We know who Anna and Din are, our two main characters. The Knives Out component, where you have the brilliant investigator and the detective, working together, Sherlock and Holmes. It's a really great dynamic, these two. They are so great, and they're just even better in this novel. If any small critique, did not talk too much about it, because yes, I could go on about this. I enjoyed it so much. I felt like we start expanding the lore and maybe contradicting some of the things in the first, not really contradicting, but that's the interesting thing, was certain aspects kept secret for a reason, and now it's just being expanded on, or it's the book slowly taking a different direction. But it's everything I loved about the first book. It's yet another mystery, so it's almost self-contained. But yes, you definitely need to read book 1, because the world that I love so much, the imaginative world that Bennett had created with this Leviathans, these creatures like Titans from Attack on Titan that are attacking the Empire. And yes, our lowly investigators are doing their share to drive back the Titans. Yes, there's other factions within the Empire to deal with the actual Titan attacks, but the work they do is it kind of plays in this theme of the small person making impact. The ending was amazing because it almost flipped things on its head, but then it goes on to this kind of epilogue that, I would say it recontextualizes everything like Hania's trilogy ending did, where it just totally blew me away. But the ending added a much needed emotional impact, and it was, I don't want to spoil too much, but it's wrapped everything up. It added more mysteries, expanded the mystery. There's more to solve and understand about the characters, the world in book 3. Cannot wait for book 3 of Shadow of Leviathan. Great time. What else did I start? So I finished that last week, and then this week I ended up starting 3 books. So one is a read along, one I'm just reading the next one, and the third one I just got the hold, so I started to preview it. So the first thing to start off, yes, I'm doing a read along on Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This has been on my TBR to be read for ages. I bought the audiobook when it was on sale, I think the last winter sale. So it's about 8 months now that's been sitting in my Audible library. It won so many awards last year. It was on my radar because everyone was raving about it, that it's literary fantasy, that it's fantastical, but it's definitely a literary work where you're forced to think. And I can say that now with conviction because I'm about 60% done. Just finished up part 3. So I, of course, don't know the ending yet, but I've got a feel for the atmosphere that's building in the story. It's moody. It makes you think. I definitely see the literary angle where there's a lot of things that probably I'm going to get recontextualized by the ending, and I'm just thinking about things and trying to discover kind of the mystery and the vibes that's happening. So yeah, I can see why people like it, but I also could maybe see why people don't like it because yeah, like the plot really, there's not like plot per se yet so far. It's more of a journey. That's a weird way to say it without spoiling, but anyways, it's interesting. It's a fun read. It's not too long, so it's a great book to try. I definitely would recommend it, even without having finished it. And then the other book that I'm about 75% done with after tonight, just a little more reading before recording, and that is Book of the New Sun, number 2, The Claw of the Conciliator. And oddly, these two books pair well together, Piranesi and Book of the New Sun. Very similar style of narration, where in Book of the New Sun, it's been around forever, so semi-spoiler, but the narration is with an unreliable narrator, Severian. He's telling his story, and he's telling it... he says he has perfect memory, but we can tell, especially with the first book, that he doesn't. He just skips over things. And that was jarring in the first book, where I was kind of getting my bearings in how the world was, how the story is laid out, because some scenes just go from one scene to the other. And I was like, what am I supposed to be following this? What just happened? I had to get like an update. I was reading along with a chapter guide. I was looking at summaries, like, did I miss something? And no, that's the way it's written, because even though he doesn't explicitly say it so much in the first book, that like he's just recounting this part of the story, and then the next thing on his mind is the next part of the story, and he kind of skips the middle parts. But here in book 2, he explicitly states that. So maybe this was Wolfe kind of catching up the reader to the world in the early chapters, but like Severian has an event and he goes to a town and something happens, and he says, speaking to the reader, whoever is reading this journal in the future, that he says that know that this that I'm doing here in this town, I do in other towns, even though I don't write about it. So it's one of those things where it was just, it was like really nice to read that he's kind of going to gloss over that things are going to happen in between events, that he's only recounting the major events, but kind of like a movie where you don't see every single movement and opening every door. The scene just shifts to the characters at their next destination, but you can assume things happened in between without telling you that, yes, they went to another town, they worked for a little bit, got some money, then went on to the next town, and then they made it to their destination. So it was really interesting. And when Severian talks to the reader, or talks to his journal, I guess you could say, and talks about his lapses and things that he's going to do or things he's thinking about. So it got me in that headspace more. And then reading, starting Piranesi, which also has an unreliable narrator, where it's the narrator, I assume unreliable, but I haven't finished yet, but the narrator is writing a journal, and we as the reader are reading the journal. So I'm puzzling together from both books, when is the narrator, either Piranesi or Severian, doing something on purpose, leaving things out, forgetting things, skipping over things. So yeah, it's very interesting, and they're very similar books. So it is a little bit keeping my mind separate of the two. So I'm going to try and finish up one before finishing the other, but it is also a refreshing break to jump between books and kind of let my mind puzzle out one and marinate a little bit on one plot. But yeah, Book of the New Sun, number 2, really great. It's one of those books where I'm glad I pushed through the first book, and I'm glad I started the second book. I think this is one of those themes of maybe that some books that I maybe gave up too early on, that I am seeing the value in these second books of pushing on as the author kind of, finds its footing. The story establishes itself a bit more. Drop of Corruption was great second book, even though the first book was great too. Book of the New Sun, number 1, was interesting enough just because the world was so crazy. Even though I was lost a lot of time, the world was just very imaginative, very visual. I was floored by the descriptions, so I wanted to just keep discovering more. So it did nicely set me up to book 2. And then lastly, the third book that I just started a couple of chapters of because I saw the whole came through in the library, and I was like, okay, let me take a break from Claw of the Conciliator for something different. And that third book is Too Like the Lightning by Ada Palmer. And wouldn't you know it, this book also uses the literary device of an author telling its story. So yeah, somehow, yes, I'm not reading one, not two, but three books where a narrator is telling a story back to the reader as a literary device. And Too Like the Lightning is like Book of the New Sun. It takes place in a future Earth, unlike Book of the New Sun, which is maybe eons, millennia in the future. Too Like the Lightning is only a couple hundred years in the future. Very interesting. This got on my radar because Benjamin Lyer, the author of The Failures, one of my favorite recent books, mentioned this on a Instagram post where I was trying to look through his social media for any hints on book 2 of The Failures of the Wonderlands coming out. And I saw that he had mentioned that he was at like a bookstore and he saw this book, Too Like the Lightning, mentioned it as one of his favorite books. And then I thought, okay, it's one of those things where if author was maybe inspired by a book and this is led to him writing a book that I did enjoy, maybe the source material is worth looking into. And so far it is weird and interesting in a good way, a lot like Book of the New Sun, where it's the future and things are different, but the characters that live there take that as normal, which is a lot prevalent in Book of the New Sun, where we're in this alien world as the reader, like what is going on, but to them it's commonplace because it's their reality. And that writing is really great because it doesn't sound foreign. The author doesn't take steps to explain it, because why would Severian have to explain what things are when that's his reality? So it forces the reader to puzzle out what's going on through kind of vague hints. Not the saying that Wolfe doesn't drop hints or Palmer isn't dropping hints in Too Like the Lightning, but of what's actually going on. There's small little descriptions, but both authors do put the onus on the reader to catch up and kind of catch those subtle hints without being overly descriptive, which I enjoy. It's the authors are assuming the reader is a mature reader that's going into this with a certain mindset. So a very good read so far. Just reading the first, I think, 2 chapters where we're introduced to Mycroft and what's his name? It's the Bridger. Yeah, the Bridger is the character. Very interesting. It's not that sort of a spoiler, but if you read the description, the Bridger and Mycroft are listed. So the description is about just a future world and this person called the Bridger and things that happen. So I just learned about the Bridger and the world. Very interesting. So that's what I'm currently reading. These 3 books, 2 books almost finished. Definitely going to finish both of them by the weekend and then shift over to Too Like the Lightning. And in addition to that, what's up next on my reads? Trying to use up my Audible credits, even though, yes, I saw there was a video today that makes the Audible situation sound even crazier. So it makes me kind of consider, do you stick with Audible with this whole profit sharing unlimited service they're doing? So you can check out, there's a Daniel Green video where he kind of goes into that, and I saw discussions on Reddit about it. But I just renewed my Audible because I used my 3 credits that I had from the last offer, and when I went to cancel, they offered 50% off, and I was like, okay, $7 isn't so bad for another 3 months. So 3 more credits for $7, it's worth it. So, but what I used my last 3 credits was my next book after I find some time is Gardens of the Moon, Malazan, Book 1. Very excited to start this series that is talked about a lot on the internet for good or bad reasons. And the more I looked into it, and what kind of cemented my opinion was a couple different content creators on BookTube saying that it's not weird, it's just different. And I think it's what it sounds like to me, and what I took away, that it's maybe overblown the difficulty. It's just a different style of writing. It's not bad or hard. It's just a different style. And a lot of people seem to love it. And I think I will love it too. And besides that, what came in the mail today, which is weird, like I don't get mail, but someone reached out to me from JN Chaney offering a book. And I was like, okay, it sounds interesting. So they sent this I guess content creator goodie box, you could call it. But anyways, the book is JN Chaney's 1-800-STARSHIP. And what it is, because it sounded cool, I was like, yeah, I'll check it out, I guess. It's basically The Last Starfighter. So if you remember that movie from 1984, I had to look it up. So it came out after I was born. Yes, I'm an elder millennial, born in 82. But yeah, I remember watching this as a kid. The plot of The Last Starfighter is this kid is playing an arcade game, gets a high score, and like the arcade game is a recruitment device to go off to fight an interstellar war. And that's at least what I vaguely remember the plot. And that's what this book, 1-800-STARFIGHTER, is about in rough, broad strokes, is that this kid is calls the number on the back of an old magazine he finds in an arcade, and it leads to him being recruited to what sounds like a galactic battle. So it sounds definitely up my alley as a child of the 80s who grew up on arcades, classic games, classic sci-fi. The Last Starfighter, it also apparently from the description has vibes of like Ready Player One, so a lot of nostalgia hits. So I was like, yeah, this actually does sound something that I would enjoy, because I recently read, this was over Christmas or Thanksgiving, I read a book by JN Chaney and Christopher Hopper, which is Ruins of the Earth, and I actually really loved it. It's like popcorn military sci-fi. It was just so fun, lots of action, great dialogue. It's vastly different from Book of the New Sun, which is like literary fantasy or literary science fiction fantasy, because it's definitely science fiction in the far technological future. Whereas Ruins of the Earth was like, totally blanking, the Gate film, Stargate. I'm totally blanking. Yes, top of my tongue. It's like Stargate meets alien invasion in the U.S. It was crazy. It was fun. It was just so much fun. I had a lot of great time with Ruins of the Earth by Hopper and Chaney. And yeah, from the description, I think 1-800-STARSHIP sounds like worth my time. I think I will definitely enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to reading that physical copy, but I will probably get the audiobook too to support the author, because again, I like the author, and that's something I've noticed in my reading is really trusting the author lately, that if you like one work by them, you're probably going to like the other. So once you kind of find an author you vibe with, it's kind of a safe bet to read something else by that author. Just from my personal anecdote here is, yeah, I've read so many books. I've read a lot of lately, but a lot of like book ones. But when I read another book by the author, it's a pretty good bet that it's going to be a good one. Recently reading something by China Mieville, reading Book of Elsewhere, and then recently Perdido Street Station. Totally out of order because Perdido was amazingly better, but Book of Elsewhere with Keanu Reeves was a lot of fun, and I like the author. So things like that, it's an author I will seek out again. And I think Chaney is an author I would seek out his other works, and he has a vast catalog. Geez, I looked it up. He's a very prolific writer. So that is what I'm reading, and long segment on reading, what I watch. So the other thing that I love talking about, let me scroll down. So a busy weekend with reading, but no time for watching with social obligations. 2 amazing movies, one that was 5-star, one that was 4.5. So what I watched this weekend, on Friday, we watched F1 with Brad Pitt. Was amazing. I loved F1. It has the same vibe, the closest vibe. The same director is Top Gun Maverick, which was a lot of fun. And Top Gun Maverick was such a great feel good nostalgia hit, but also just a great story, great flow, great dialogue, pacing. It was a really good movie. I love Maverick. Watched it multiple times already. And F1 is a movie I feel you can watch multiple times. Just the story was good. It never really lags. The pacing, the plot was great. All the characters were great. They were believable, real. There was tension, there was action. Maverick is obviously flying. This one, F1, is racing, but it's in vehicles, I guess. So it's a very similar vibe. A lot of fun. I see why it is praised so much already. But yeah, F1 was pretty great. A lot of fun with that. Again, no movie on Saturday. So we were super busy Saturday. But then Sunday, this was almost like 2 movies, and that is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. This is the monster 3-hour movie. Yeah, I don't know how it got so long, but watching it, obviously, I knew, like, because the first hour is basically a speed run recap of the entire Mission Impossible franchise. So 30 years of content in the first hour of the Final Reckoning. And then kind of the back half, the next hour and 40 minutes is the actual movie. So you could almost watch this without watching any other movie and be set with a monster 3-hour movie, but it was pretty good. I would say, yeah, 4.5 out of 5. Not perfect. A little bit, maybe too much nostalgia at the beginning. There are a lot of callbacks. Like there was the character from Mission Impossible 1 and the knife. Yes, this is my thing too. This knife that Tom Cruise, when he drops down into the vault in the very first Mission Impossible, he leaves a knife behind, and that exact knife makes its way 30 years later to this research station in the middle of nowhere from the person that he got fired by, that got him fired. And I mean, it was a very convenient plot device, kind of a member berries sort of thing. But yeah, it's a lot of callbacks, a lot of fun. The final send-off was a great send-off. What everyone talks about, the action sequences were amazing. The sub scene was amazing. And they topped that off with the airplane scene at the end. Really great action. Again, maybe a half a star, because can Tom Cruise never get an Uber? He runs everywhere in this movie. He's running from one part of London to the other. He's running through the jungle. He's just running all over the place. So that was maybe the other, okay, I know it's Mission Impossible. The cliche, the trope is Tom Cruise running places, and he's running all over the world here in the Final Reckoning, but still a lot of fun. I don't know if it's worth 3 hours, but it's definitely worth the last hour 40. So enjoyed myself with Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. And then, yeah, since that was the only 2 movies we watched, what else we're caught up on? I guess in the sci-fi fantasy realm, watching some anime adaptation. So DanDaDan still going strong, still fun to weekly catch up on that. Maybe importantly, talk about Alien Earth Episode 3. I feel was maybe a redeemer in the series. Whereas episode 2, I think I had my gripes of that suspension of disbelief that these kids in robot bodies are experiencing the horrors of the xenomorph and all these other aliens in this crashed spaceship. And yeah, nothing's happening. Yes, we're explaining away because of the hormones, I guess, and they're AIs, but they're humans. But yeah, it was a little unbelievable, the search and rescue team in episode 2. But episode 3, I thought brought the series back up because we resolved that arc and we expand the lore a lot. So we kind of set the direction of what the plot is going to be for the rest of the series. The major players are kind of revealed, what the A storylines, the B storylines. I'm really loving the Boy Cavalier stuff with the synths and how all of the Lost Boys and girls are dealing with becoming who they are and kind of those internal struggles. And then you've got the alien subplots where, yeah, they're experimenting on these multiple species, which I thought was cool. You're expanding the lore. It's not just, of course, they went on this research vessels, so they didn't just get xenomorphs and eggs. They also got a couple other weird alien species. So we're seeing a little bit of expansion of the species of not just xenomorphs, even though, yes, xenomorphs are going to be prevalent. So yeah, it's like a typical series nowadays where there's multiple plot lines and they're all going to converge and twist and overlap throughout the series, I'm sure. But yeah, I really enjoyed episode 3. I thought it was a return to form from the first one as we get into the lore and more about the world of Alien Earth. That was where I'm going to wrap things up today with this extended talk about a bunch of books that I'm reading, almost going to mini reviews, but yeah, can't wait to get back to Piranesi and Book of the New Sun, and then on to Like the Lightning. So thanks for watching this long, extended weekly catch up on reading and watching. My name is Zach. Hope you enjoyed this video. Leave any comments and suggestions below, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.